Jim, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Yes.
today I thought I'd just go through this craziness we keep hearing on television and the newspaper, and we always talk about in business, and that's the return to work after the pandemic and what is going on. I deal with many clients in this area, and we're talking about a very tough dilemma most companies are in. First of all, productivity is one of the ones that keep on being brought up. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Oh, again, we did not think this pandemic was going to last 5 times longer than we could have ever imagined. A lot of people are working at home in conditions that are not really acceptable. They're working off of half of their dining room table. Kids are screaming in the background. Confidentiality information is not being covered, and other people are seeing it. We just keep on getting this concern from managers and owners that it is very hard to manage people sitting in their homes doing the work. And it's also very hard to train new employees. Most of companies had training that the person sat next to somebody else. They ghosted them for a long time before they started doing work. It's very hard to do that on a remote atmosphere. Sharing screens and capacity of all of that stuff is non-productive. The camaraderie is missing, especially and this is an era that we would thought the millennials would have loved to work from home, but it's really the opposite. They want to be in the office because they miss that camaraderie, friendship, being able to go out to lunch with their friends, go out to dinner or drinks after work with their friends at work. So that camaraderie is missing. And we get this all the time. The employees are feeling that when they're at home, they're not being visible, and therefore their chances of promotion are small. So they're trying to get back to work just to be visible and to try to get those promotions. We could talk all day about expenses, how the employees are saving money, how employers are saving money, or vice versa. There's, in some cases, employers are expending more money because they can't get rid of their office spaces, but yet they're spending money on other things, especially IT. What's going on with employees that are working from home? We're seeing a tremendous amount of mental stress on employees. We're hearing employees complain more and more about that mental stress. We have, you probably heard on television that the market for liquor and alcohol is up like 25-30% across America. And of course, we have noticed a lot of employees that are drinking at home on the job, also doing drugs at home on the job. So that's becoming another employee relations concern that we deal with all day long. Depression is increasing. Now I think we're seeing a little less of that lately because of the opening up of America and not wearing masks all over the place and people feeling a little more comfortable living in their homes. We're seeing that employees are becoming more demanding in their behavior, almost like I'm doing you a favor from working from home, so I want this, and that. So that's a little interesting. And then we keep on hearing a lot of employees saying, well, I'll quit if I'm asked to come back to work. And I'll just go find another job because they think that all these other companies that they're hearing are working from home will continue working from home forever. And we don't know if that's really true. So I think there's some indications that that's starting to turn around about, well, I'll quit if I'm asked to come back to work. But they're also asking questions like, well, if I do come to work, is all my coworkers vaccinated? So that becomes a question whether the company wants to release that information or even collect that information. And then, of course, they're asking about their safety. You know, how are you going to run the office facility so that I am safe coming back to work? Is there going to be social distancing and all of that kind of stuff? I want to know who's vaccinated is another big thing that employees are saying. And then, of course, they want to know what's the deal. How many days do I have to come back to work? Is it going to be all 5 days? Is it 2 days? Is it 3 days? So the companies are in a big quandary about writing policies and then publishing them to the employees and then giving them a time frame to understand what they're being required to do. Any questions right now?
How many of these people are getting walked out the door right now?
Well, interesting, not too many because there's a lot of companies that are not forcing people to come to the office in the non-essential businesses. Now, the essential businesses we're getting a little tougher on, requiring people to either wear a mask or have a vaccine, things of that nature. And we, in those industries, we have a couple of people that we've actually had to terminate because they just they refuse to come back to work. And we're, you're legally authorized to do that.
Yep. Sure.
So it's, I would say most owners don't want to do it. They're trying to be fair with their employees to get them back to work. But if you're in an essential business, and you need the people there, it's hard to work from home. And we just can't let you sit in a home forever, and we're not going to pay you. And we got to put a policy in place that says, hey, by X date, if you're not here, then go find another job.
You don't want your employees holding you hostage.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. And I think that's where we're starting to draw the line. I had an owner the other day who was so ticked because this employee doesn't want to come to work because she does not think the employer is providing a safe enough environment. But yet this person went on vacation and had posted all kinds of pictures on her Facebook and being at parties, being at bars that they were 1 inch apart from each other, being at an ice cream store that was probably had 100 too many people in the store, and things like that. And it's like, so there's a double standard. You know, the employees are okay with being together when they're partying and all that. But boy, when it comes to work, they want that freedom to work at home and wear the fluffy slippers and not have to wear nice clothing, basically. So
how are companies doing with the wanting to know who is vaccinated as it relates to HIPAA?
actually very good because HIPAA has provided a statement that it's an authorized request and it's not in violation of HIPAA. And
aren't there some, I know I just read something about, now it's not a workplace, I think it was a university, something where they're requiring students to be vaccinated and now it's in the courts.
I haven't heard a university doing that yet. I don't know if you heard, but Piedmont Hospitals just announced, I think it was 2 days ago, that I think the date is September 1st. You must have full vaccination of COVID by September 1st. Provide documentation you have it, or you cannot work. Okay.
The college was Charleston College in South Carolina, and the Attorney General filed I don't know if he filed a lawsuit or if he sent a letter, but they immediately changed their tune.
Really?
That's
Yes.
right. I saw that. I saw an interview with him. Yeah, he said in South Carolina, it's still a matter of choice.
Yeah.
And then I just saw something, Clark Howard just came back from his first cruise and he said that they're separating unvaccinated and vaccinated people on the cruise ship.
Well, wait a minute. I thought the cruise ships require you to have a vaccine before you get on the cruise ship.
I said one got caught requiring it for the passengers, but not for their employees.
Whoa.
It's crazy.
Whoa. That's crazy.
I still.
What about HIPAA? What about HIPAA? They can
I
get that
fall in
information.
line with, if you're vaccinated, why do you care?
Right.
Well, I don't know if you saw the news this morning, but there's been many cases now that people have been vaccinated for a while. It's not like they're in the 14-day period, they're second, and they still might be vulnerable, that has now gotten COVID. And it's the Delta version. So, you know, who knows what's happening right now with this Delta version and the current vaccines. And of course, let's face it, the vaccines are only good to about 92%. They're not 100%. So there's still a chance for people getting it. So what happened? You know, mid-March, everybody was sent home. No time to put any policies in place. We have now found that in the past year, almost employees have hardly taken any vacation. And of course, now they're going crazy taking vacations in the last 2 months because everything has been lifted and they feel they could go out and be more comfortable with people. And they don't have to wear a mask. I mean, that was the other thing. Why should I go to Disney World if I got to wear a mask all day long? That would be the most unpleasant vacation I think I'd ever go on in my life. So a lot of companies also forgot to give performance reviews or increases during COVID, or they just didn't have time to cope with it, or they didn't want to cope with it because they felt that they were experiencing other expenses, or maybe even a downturn in their business, but they didn't communicate it very well with their employees. So now employees are being asked to return. Employees are afraid to work in an office and sometimes alone. You know, it's like, well, one person come back in, have one person at least in the office answering the phones, and then you got an employee who says, well, I don't want to work in the office alone. I'm afraid working in the office alone. So there's all kinds of different things going on. And I think we're still in that mixed determination of productivity of employees. But I could tell you my feeling about this productivity. At the beginning, when we sent everybody home, yes, there was an extreme increase in productivity. And that's because the people felt that, okay, I usually leave at 6:30 in the morning to start work at 8. So they actually started working at 6:30 in the morning. And we saw people working at that time. And then they would leave at 5 and get home at 6:30, but they would work till 6:30. So a lot of companies were getting upwards of 3 hours additional work out of employees. However, now that people could go out in the workplace, out of the workplace and in social areas, stores, grocery stores, you name it, we're starting to see employees not being as productive because they're getting out during the day. They're going out for long lunches. Maybe they're even going shopping during the day because, you know, they can answer their emails via their phones and all that kind of stuff. So we are starting to see productivity starting to drop in these employees working from home. So I think that's why we're starting to see a lot of owners, especially talking to us about, let's put a plan in place to get our employees back to work. Now, there's a lot of legal issues that, you know, I know we tried to tell a lot of our clients, and also in some of the webinars I took, and that is put a work from home policy in place, but nobody wanted to do it because it's not an easy policy to put in place. However, without a policy, one of the huge things that you lose ability to do is if you don't have a OSHA compliance note in your policy of working from home, then it's very, very hard for you to have the ability to go to a employee's house and do an OSHA inspection, make sure it's safe. But another reason you're going to want to go do that inspection during the working hours, if you suspect an employee being a little bit tipsy, maybe even drunk or high on drugs that we are really experiencing. I mean, I would say that concern of drinking or doing drugs during work is probably increased by darn near 35–40%.
Can't you send them to the doctor for a blood test or even a lab?
Yeah, but again, I wouldn't want the legal concern about sending somebody drunk into their car or even try to tell them to go to Uber and all of that stuff.
Well, it's pretty simple. If they're not qualified to get in a car, then that's a good question. But
Just to add, my wife got work from home when she was doing it. She's had to answer multiple questionnaires.
Yep.
Railings, steps, stairs, what does she have to do during the day? All kinds of stuff. Kind of interesting.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, making that determination if the employees must have a vaccine to return to work. Drawing that line in the sand, basically saying, hey, September 1st, I think September 1st is a date that I have seen many of my clients put on the map saying this is the date you need to be in the office and please have a vaccine, prove you have a vaccine, or you're going to wear a mask. I think that's kind of like the major policies that most are going. And of course, the vaccine is also, you have the exceptions of religious documented individuals or medical documented, which, by the way, once argued, very, very, very small percent would reach those two categories. So working from home. Well, that's the other thing that we had a lot of companies do is allow the employees to use their own computers at home. And then you can't monitor what they're doing. So, because they didn't want the employees to carry their computers to home base and have it at home. They didn't want to give them a computer. So anyway, there's really, you could probably produce 6, 8 different work from home policies, but there's 2 major ones that should be almost written in almost every company, and that's the voluntary one and those who must work at home. There's too many other differences depending on the company and how they operate and all that, but these are the 2 major ones. Well, what probably should be in both of those policies is requiring the employee to have high-speed internet. Still experiencing, employees are running off of some really cheap systems and they can't get Zoom to work and all that other stuff. Their wireless must be password protected so that any documents they're passing back and forth in companies could be protected a little bit. If it's sensitive items, you should require employees to encrypt it back and forth. That wasn't going on for a long, long time when you sent people home, and we then got all of this internet problems with people stealing information off the internet. And then do not display documents that are confidential. So we've seen this happening more and more, that they're working off their dining room table. They have all this information. They have friends over. All of a sudden, the friends see other documents that they're not supposed to see. And that's breaching confidentiality. That person didn't have any right to see that confidential information. So that needs to be discussed. How to shred unused documents. Do employees have shred machines at home? If not, are they to bring them back to the office and shred them? Are you going to provide a service for them to shred it? All of that stuff needs to be considered from work from home. And then, of course, the inspection and right to come to the facility at any time during working hours. Now, we allowed during the pandemic, it was okay to have kids running around because everybody was forced to go home almost. Animals barking, kids being loud or running through Zoom meetings, all of that stuff. But post-pandemic, we are seeing more and more companies saying, hey, forget it. This is a requirement for you to have a quiet place that you must work in, control your animals from barking or meowing or chattering if you got a big bird that keeps chatting all day long. And listen, we're not going to babysit your kids anymore. You go find babysitting services, all that. If you want to work from home, we want you to be in a professional environment. Well, that's a huge change from day one when we sent everybody home last March, isn't it?
Hey, Jim, pause, please. The reality of this could happen all over again, a 9/11. I mean, drawing that line in the sand and then having to send people back home could be quite embarrassing for the folks making those statements, right?
Yeah, but then I think you relax the policy again.
Sure, but I'm saying, is there a way to be a little bit more prepared next time? That's what I'm wondering.
Yes. I mean, have the policies already prepared, because 99% of it would still be appropriate, like having high-speed internet, all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I think that we're always, from the experience here, it is recommended almost today to at least allow your employees to work from home one day a week or one day a month. But why do you want that to be done? Because you're really exercising your emergency
Right.
approach to getting people home if they have to. Same thing with locations up in the north that have snowstorms that they can't get to work. They exercise these a lot better than in the south because of the weather conditions more than anything else.
So how painful can you make it to work from home without crossing the line?
I mean, when you think about everything I addressed so far, is nothing more than we really expected out of a person working from home prior to the word COVID-19. When you really think about it, we've had a lot of people in a lot of industries. In the payroll industry, we have a lot of implementation people and training people. That's the first things I could think of. Almost all of those people work from home, but they've always had a professional work environment. They've always ensured that their kids aren't there screaming and yelling. They made sure their dogs were outside when they had their meetings, and they dressed professionally in front of a camera. So those were the basics that we had prior to COVID happening. So we really need to get back to those rules again. If you want to work from home, and if you're either way, if you're voluntarily working from home because of convenience for you versus the company, you have to abide by these rules. So another thing that's always been a touchy subject is cell phones. What's the policy? It's like, okay, I sent you to home, but I don't want you to use my cell phone. I don't want all the clients to know my cell phone number. Well, then go get a landline, but make sure you have phone communications, because without phone communications, how could you do your job? How, if your job requires you to do Zoom, which almost every job now at home does, then you better have the equipment to allow you to have video and Zoom meetings and cameras on your computers. So that was something that a lot of companies experienced as soon as they sent everybody home. It was like, oh my gosh, we got to now go buy cameras for everyone because nobody has a camera at their home computer, all that other stuff. And then a lot of companies really are more proficient when their employees have 2 monitors. So maybe their equipment didn't have video cards and all that. So here we go, more expense to the company having people work from home. So, but all those need to be addressed in the policies of what you expect if you're going to work from home. And then, of course, what the dress code will be.
Have you heard anybody asking for a dedicated work area at their house?
Yes, if it is those that are required to work from home all the time. And I'll give you an example, a salesperson that, there's 5 sales people around the country in different states, and the company is located here in Georgia. We expect you to have a professional office environment, or if you can't at home, we will rent you space at one of those rental space places for $300 a month. Because when we get into the must work from home people, you usually find that the company will pay for most of the equipment, like the internet, the computers, the printers, software, a cell phone, or a landline. Now that's the difference in a lot of respects of work from home for a must work from home employee. Well, another reason we're going to buy all that stuff and give it to that person is I don't have to have space in my facility for them. So I don't have to spend all that money having that person in the facility all day long. But yet they have to be productive, and we want them to have a company computer because of what? Security, all the other stuff. Then we don't want them to use oddball software that they might have stolen from another friend of theirs. We want to make sure the software is all in compliance with all of the laws and licenses. And then we want control of your cell phone usually. So
have any companies looked at, if you want to continue, you don't want to come back to the office, then become a 1099 employee or a contracted employee?
I just switched one person today or yesterday.
Because
Exactly.
there's also employment services out there that you could work through as well.
Yes, like MPP. But yes, this person was working from home, but the company was already, and we're actually writing the policies for the employees to come back to work September 1st. But this employee said, hey, my family all lives here and my wife got a job there. So I'm moving there. And it's like, whoa, that's so fast. We're expecting you to be back in the office in another month and a half. So we worked it out that he has now turned into a 1099, actually really a contractor. I hate using 1099s. I always consider a 1099 as somebody that you're writing a check against a social security number. We're requiring this person to actually go get a company. So it's billed directly to a company federal ID number.
And it's interesting, Jim, you mentioned dress code on the last slide. I had 3 of my clients ask me to come in and do presentations for their employees on how to dress virtually.
Bingo. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm in the HR profession for, hate to say it, July 1st, I hit my 50th year of being in the profession of HR. And I was on the phone with 5 HR people like Monday or Tuesday of this week, and they're all working from home, and it was a Zoom call. And I was actually embarrassed of what, and it was females, not the males, the females were wearing on that Zoom call. It's like, oh, could you shut your camera off? So yes, I could see where there is a lot of need for that. And then, of course, on the company side of their own equipment, if they're going to use or require to be used their own equipment on a job, you probably should have that in the offer letter with contingencies. You know, you have the contingency of, gee, you have to pass a background and a drug test. You need to sign our handbook, and we have to whatever else. But if you're going to require them to have their own equipment, also put it as a contingency of employment. So then it's properly stated and legally identified and supported. Okay, those that do not have to work from home, those are the employees that want to work from home because of convenience. Gee, it's a long way to get to the office. Can I work from home? Gee, I got a repair person coming in to my house today, and can I work from home today? Those type of things that we heard before the pandemic happened. So in that case, usually the companies say, hey, you still have to have all that internet, all those requirements that were on that first slide. However, we're not going to pay for any of the equipment, but you have to have it if you want to work from home. So in other words, if you want the privilege to work from home, don't come to us and then ask us to pay for you to work from home, because I'm not requiring you to work from home. I got a space in the office, and why do I need to spend more money on you working at home? So always have the employee sign those policies. It's always in your best interest to do that. But I would make sure this stuff is addressed in the future, because it is so widely misused right now. And companies are at their ends with saying, we got to get this under control, but we don't want to tick the employee off. They got to work for us, and da 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 da. So there is a little bit of contention out there. So what is companies doing? We're obviously seeing them move very, very slow in moving back to work. However, let me tell you, the discussions are very, very heavy right now, because owners, CEOs want these people to get back to work. And they don't mind a hybrid, but we're pushing for them to write policies. So when they announce it, everything is in black and white. There's no holes like there were when everybody was just sent home on March, 15th, 16th of last year. So a lot of companies are considering, and I would say this is the highest, the number of clients are looking at going to 1 to 2 days work at the office. The rest could be at home. Some of them are saying mandatory 1 day, so everybody's in the office that 1 day, so that camaraderie and meetings and all that can be handled in a more effective way. And then pick another day of the week that you will be in the office to spread that out. So some of them are saying you only can work from home 1 day a week, or vice versa. And then there's always that dilemma. If I am work from home, I prefer them working from home on Tuesdays through Thursdays, because we have seen, especially now, with everybody allowed to travel and not wear masks, They're booking out for vacation next week, but we've already observed by Thursday afternoon, they're already traveling to their destination, but yet they're claiming they're working. So CEOs don't like that long weekend people are getting by working from home on Monday or Fridays. The requiring of vaccines or must wear a mask is being debated heavily. We do not see very many clients wanting to demand a vaccine or lose the job, but I think in some of the essential business companies, we're seeing it more, like veterinarian firms. It's like, listen, you got to have a vaccine, and we're just, you have to work in the office, so you have to have a vaccine. You don't have a vaccine, just don't show up, and we don't have a job for you. So a lot of those are taking that stance. And I think that return to work, September 1st is the targeted date, strictly so it matches the school sessions when kids are going back to school around the country, because of the problems with, still the kids are home, the parents have to be home to watch the kids. There's no place to send them. Those camp programs filled up extremely fast, and there's no place to have their kids go. Very few are talking about closing their office forever. I'm only aware of one or two companies so far that want to do that, and just let their people work from home the rest of their life while they work for the company. So we talked a little bit about the safety procedures in place, and we're talking about both. We're concerned about the employee continuing to work at home with wires laying all over the place. They're working off of their kitchen table. They're getting spaghetti juice all over the paperwork they're doing, you name it. And then, of course, the employees are worrying about social distancing at work, even though we feel that's a double standard. Childcare is still another huge thing, and we're going to be talking about people coming back to work and not coming back to work because of childcare. Requiring a mask, I am definitely still seeing a lot of organizations. I went and picked up my glasses because I am repaired, and all three people at the glass at that place was wearing their masks. So there's a lot of companies, retailers, they're still requiring their employees to wear masks, even though in most states that have been lifted. Oh, and this is another thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to reduce the space in my office, and then we're going to rotate people working at home and coming into the office, and we'll just have shared space for them. Well, let me tell you, the employees are really complaining about coming into work in a space that's not their space, and they feel that it's not washed properly, cleaned properly, and they don't want to touch somebody else's phone and computer and keyboards and all of that stuff. So, and I understand that the companies like the IBMs of the world that had the shared space for salespeople, they're raising that concern about going into the office and using that shared space because they don't want to touch other people's equipment, phones, etc. Oh, all these dilemmas we're into. So I think we're hearing about recruiting and what's going on. This one I've been watching very, very closely because it is a big concern in the HR field, and that is over 2 million women are on the sideline because of what? They decided to stay at home, watch their children because their children had to go to virtual school. And if you have anywhere knowledge of a young kids like in kindergarten or first grade that is trying to learn through a computer, it is not easy to control a kid at that age sitting at a computer and trying to learn on a computer. So there has to be adult supervision. So that's why the women pretty much stayed home, because they were probably making less money than the male. Now they're starting to realize, well, wait a minute. Now that we're home, we are not realizing the income we were making, but however, we're not realizing all of those higher taxes we had to pay. I'm able to take care of my children and not pay somebody else, so I don't have to pay for a sitter or nanny costs. I don't have to pay for those extra clothes and makeup, and oh my gosh, the travel costs. I used to spend $200 a month on gas going back and forth to work. At the end of the day, the real cash that was realized with two incomes versus one is small. Sometimes in a case, it's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. When am I working for that little extra money, killing ourselves? Then the headache of every afternoon, it's what spouse picks up the kids? Well, my boss told me to work late. Well, my boss told me to work late. Who could pick them up? Then they're trying to figure out a friend to go pick up the kids from daycare. They don't have that problem anymore. Economics are very interesting in this case. They're looking at possibly 35 to 40% of the people will return to work, leaving 60 to 65% of these people at home for a long period of time. Maybe not forever, but probably for the next couple of years. So that is why we're having a huge shortage of workers coming back to work, especially in the professional positions. It's very hard finding professional people today. And we're not talking about the people that are in the entertainment business that make up, most of that 14 million job openings that can't be filled. But when you take a look at what's going on with unemployment, I mean, why aren't they coming back to work? Well, I know that the federal supplement, there are some states that have now stopped that. And I believe the earliest state that stopped that was Georgia, which was June 26th or something like that. State unemployment is paying $385 a week. Federal supplement is $300 a week. And right now, if you're on COBRA, the company has to pay for it. Then it's a tax return on your 941. But if you got family coverage, that could be a $2,500 a month. We're basically giving an unemployed person $65,000 a year. Why would a $30,000 employee come back to work if they're making twice the amount of money? So luckily, we have almost half the states now at least get rid of the federal supplement. And then, of course, the COBRA goes away at the end of September. We'll probably start seeing more and more of those entertainment type hospitality folks coming back to work. Some survey facts. Either SHRM, I have a Prudential survey result, but 1 to 3 workers would not work for a company requiring them to be on site 100%. Very interesting. Now, again, I think this is employees trying to convince their companies not to send them back to the office. 2 to 3 employees, however, say in-person interaction is important for that advancing of their careers. Like I said earlier, not being seen equals not getting promoted. Interesting, 43% of the workers say they would be nervous about their job security if their fellow employees return to work, and they didn't want to. So I think we're going to see a little bit of that, oh boy, everybody else is coming to work, I better do it also. And then 49% of the workforce, and this survey was about 3 weeks old now. I bet it might be even up higher now, want to come back to work, but 1 or 2 days a week. Nobody's really begging to come back to work 100% of the time.
Jim, is it safe to say that the workers that would probably be most needed in a central office would be the ones that need the most supervision? And I'm thinking about, accounting departments where you have all these people processing paper and they have issues that they have to get a response from, immediately and
that need attention and they need it right away, but trying to call their boss to get an answer and that person's on the phone by the time they call them back. That's another problem with working from home is I don't know if the person is busy in the phone or they just talking to their friends and everything else, but it's very, very hard to get a hold of them. And by the time I'm having managers telling me it takes a day or two to get the person to really talk to each other because they can't connect on the phone. And it's a phone conversation versus strings of emails. Some of these work from home policies now are saying that you can't work from home until you're at least with the company 6 months. Some of them even have a year, or they put the increments like if you're less than 6 months, you only can work 1 day a month from home. If you're here for over 6 months, you can work 2 to 3 days a month. And then if you're here over a year, you can work 1 day a week from home. I'm seeing some of those policies going into place because they want to make sure that employee has the training, has the capabilities, and is proven themselves that they could work on their own before they release them to a work at home environment.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Are there any other questions for Jim?
Yeah, I have a question. Anything, I apologize if you might have covered this and I might have missed it, but anything that that really measures the degree of productivity of people at home versus the office? I've heard it stated both ways. You're more productive at home because you have less distractions. You're more productive in the office because you have less distractions. Anything that it really talks about what work is actually getting done.
Measuring productivity is so tough. Yes, I think some of these companies, especially like software developers that work from home, the manager could actually go in and see what project they're working on, how long they've been on the computer, were there any voided times like 10 minutes or more, somebody not using the keys. Yes, there are programs like that to see. Some of them are expensive, some are not that expensive, but yet it's expensive for monitoring those because you're expending a manager's time that's making, you're expending $60, $70 an hour on having somebody monitor somebody, which then becomes non-productive. And it's also based on the person, the individual. We have had many employees go to their employers and say, I want to come back to the office. I cannot concentrate at home. My parents watch my kids, but my kids know I'm here and they want to cling on to me. Can I come back to the office? And of course, then I get a call saying, what do we do? There'll be only one person in the office. And I'm not happy with only one person in the office. Do I demand somebody else to come into the office? And so there's at least 2 in the office. Do I have to now go to the office because they're there? So it then adds a bunch of other concerns. But I think it's also dependent on individuals. So productivity is very, very tough to really, really measure.
But that's an interesting thought. I mean, does that give sort of new life to some of these remote office companies like WeWork and companies of those nature. And I think I had heard that those folks before the pandemic were starting to face some issues with actually with usage.
You know, I think it could, but people got so ingrained at working from home and the relaxed atmosphere of working from home that I don't think they would really want to go to one of those places to, you know, rent a desk, unless they had the situation that they can't work from home. But then they could go to the office. But then you got the situation with, you know, and I think this is all another 2 months, and hopefully this will be beyond us, and nobody's going to be worrying about it anymore, because at any given day there's going to be 25 to 40% of people inside the offices again. But Jim, you did bring up a good point. I have several clients that their finance departments are working in the office because of what you said. The ability to communicate, they get fast answers and get work out is very, very tough at home when you're trying to get answers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can tell you a little use case. My daughter, 24 years, well, she just graduated from Auburn. They didn't have a commencement.
There you go.
Yeah, so they didn't have a commencement, right? So she didn't get to graduate. She didn't get to really walk and have a graduation. So she comes home, she gets a job with Sibley Hart. She's working remote and she didn't like it. So and then Sibley made a decision to work remote for the rest of the year. She said, Dad, I don't want to work from home. She quit, went to work for another company that has a hybrid model. So they bought her monitors, they gave her a new phone, new laptop, and then when she comes into the office, they pay her gas and they buy her lunch.
See, companies are spending so much more money for all of this effort right now. They're not going to be able to keep doing it.
I think people forget the work from home was happening pre-COVID. A lot of employees were getting hybrid models. Employers were offering meals when they came into business. You know, I think people forget that some of these things were already going on to retain and keep employees going. Because,
Yep.
You know, I think businesses are going to have to continue to modify that, but it's going to be an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, my thinking was always that the reason that work from home didn't catch on quicker because of a lot of old school thinking by baby boomer managers that said, if I don't see you at your desk, you're not working.
Yeah.
And one thing I've heard from, a lot of those folks as a result of the pandemic and people working from home is like, well, I guess I was wrong. So the good news is it probably changed a lot of minds.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the other aspect of it is, you know, you talk about productivity, and some of us on this call have, you know, even when we were employees, we worked from home. And I know I haven't really, except for my last job, I haven't had to go into an office for like almost 30 years, right? Because I've been a field-based employee. And, you know, the way productivity was generally managed was by deadline. You had certain tasks that you had to do and you had a deadline to get them done. And if you didn't, then there was an issue. So it wasn't so much about, are you working, you know, or taking a 10-minute break or whatever. It's about, are you meeting your deadlines? Are you getting your work done on time? And is the quality of your work sufficient? And that's how they managed it. So just a different world.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're also talking structured versus unstructured work here. In IT, you push as much as you can to a ticketing system to do the ticket. In project management, you push as much as you can to the task resource level for scheduling. It's these, customer meetings where things get a little complicated. But what I have found as a success, I started this a little under a year ago, that I don't meet with anybody. I don't do an assessment without a fee. And if you want to meet, I'm willing to meet, but we got to find a date so we can meet this week, or it'll be 3 weeks before we get together. And all of a sudden they want to meet this week, and they want to get a lot done this week because they don't want to wait 3 more weeks. So some of that's just sales pitch.
So Jim, you know, I asked you to sort of respond to the big uptick in business that Flex HR received right after the acquisition. But now I think I might be getting a handle on it because of all these people that may have realized that it's easier just to outsource a lot of functions than to have to manage it internally themselves.
Well, I think that's a huge piece that they have seen people doing this from home. So wait a minute, why do I have to go find another person because somebody quit to do it from home? I'll just outsource this to a professional organization that knows what they're doing anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, we just went through that as the advisory board for Close By. I mean, everything that's not consumer facing or sales, we're working with outsourced programs for almost everything.
Yep.
It just makes more sense. It's as needed as opposed to trying to decipher what you're going to have them do for 40 hours a week if you need it.
Oh,
If you
yeah,
don't need it.
absolutely.
All right, folks, you guys ready to call it a day?
Yep, gotta go.
All right.
Gotta go.
Thanks again, everybody.